So, ladies and gentlemen, Sunday Assembly is a secular community that celebrates life. We like to live better, help often, wonder more. And 8 years ago, I'm sure he can tell us, I always tell this story and I'm sure he can correct this, but I do believe that it was two stand-up comedians in a car. This is where Sanderson tells me it's not a car, it was actually in a Mexican restaurant. Two stand-up comedians in a car had a conversation about life, the world and everything, and they decided that they would set up something that anyone of any faith or no faith whatsoever can come and be happy and sing and learn and listen to great speakers, and Sunday Assembly was born. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the speaker for today, Sanderson Jones, who who doesn't like to do one assembly at a time. You started to do two. Good morning, Sanderson.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you very much for having me and for accommodating my, my split personality.
That is fine. Can I just ask you, did you have the discussion in the car or was it a Mexican restaurant?
We did have the discussion in the car. That is accurate. And then, well, indeed, we'd both been thinking about the same thing. And then it turned out that we thought, why not do it? Why not do it together? And it was as easy as that.
And then Sunday Assembly was born. And then different Sunday Assemblies from all. And you are 8 years old. Is that right today?
Sunday Assembly is 8 years old today, yes.
Great. So happy birthday to Sunday Assembly, 8 years old today. I'm going to hand over now thoroughly to Sanderson. If you have any questions, just message in the message box and we'll do a few questions at the end. So ladies and gentlemen, go wild for one of the founders, Sanderson Jones. Yay!
Hello. Thank you very, very much for having me. I can safely say that when we started Sunday Assembly, we never thought that there would be other Sunday Assemblies, yet alone other Sunday Assemblies meeting on Zoom in the middle of a pandemic. So it has, not even in our wildest nightmares did we imagine this would happen. But it is so, it's wonderful to be, well, not the pandemic part, but it is obviously wonderful to now be able to slide. I'm literally hosting Sunday Assembly to my right and then slide along and speak to you. So I don't think we'd have done that before. And it is when I go and think about it, so odd to go, for me, it wasn't, there was this sort of dream of something which could be a bit like a church, but which everyone could come to. And whenever you've got an idea for something, I don't think it ever turns out exactly how you'd think it would be. And yet at the same time, it's more than you could dream it would be. There's a drive. There was a drive to do this, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because one of the things that Sunday Assembly is a celebration of life, and this is something I come back to time and time again. And so since launching Sunday Assembly, I've now moved on to something called the Lifefulness Project, which in a way is trying to sort of create the theory behind the practice of Sunday Assembly. And so that's been really great to go off and go and sort of read up more on the various science of the neuroscience of peak experiences, go and read more on sort of theologians talking about the connection between wonder and sort of congregations, and all of this, speaking to people who are experts in the field. And one thing I've realized is that whilst there is now a really great framework for which sort of is a sort of theoretical explanation for what we're already doing, at the end of the day, I think that idea of us coming together to celebrate being alive, we're all alive right now. I imagine if you're not, then please write in. This is going to be a real challenging thing for so much of science, but yeah, we're all alive. And it's this fact which is, because it is so daily, because it is so embedded into us, that we just can take it for granted so easily. And yet every single thing that you love, everything that I love, everything that we love, everything that has ever been of any merit or value in humanity, all comes from this fact that we're alive. And I remember when I was writing the sort of first, there's somewhere on a computer, there's this funny document called Beliefs, First Draft. I don't know how you start a church. And I just thought, you've got to open a Word document. You can show that it was a while back because I opened a Word document. I didn't open a Google Doc. That's probably the sort of big change which has happened. And I can remember writing it down the first time and sort of saying that it's a celebration of life. And the feedback I got from lots of people was like, yeah, you should maybe concentrate more on the celebration of life and less on the speaking about death so much. But that was, that's where this comes from in many ways. And I just thought I can, sometimes I find that I can get more into the learning, more into the research, more into the footnotes. But at the end of the day, there's something really simple behind all of this, is that if we become aware of being alive, then not only does it have a transformative effect on us as an individual in day to day, but it can change the way we treat others. It can change the way we want the world to be. It can, inform us for when we see a sense of right or wrong, like, am I doing the right thing, which will help other people live their lives and take advantage of this? And so I decided, I was like, should I go and get my presentation? I just thought I'd just talk about this, because I think it is one way I've had thought about, like, what does it mean to celebrate life? What does it mean to really connect to this? And an analogy which I've been finding useful is, it's the relationship which you can most easily take for granted. I'm sure there's times in your life, whether it is as a friend, whether it is as a child, whether it is as a partner, or whether it's been the way that you've treated your partner, the things which are most familiar to us are the things that we can become most used to, and the things that we end up taking for granted. And the question is, how can you not take your life for granted? How can you fall in love with your life again? And how can you ensure that you can keep on doing that? And so this is, I don't know whether I should maybe turn this into a sort of Cosmo article. 10 ways you can spice up your love of life. Occasionally grab it by the nipples when it's not expecting it. So yeah, I don't know exactly the right way to do it, but but if we go and I think that what Sunday Assembly does is that it is a way, it's a moment in our lives where we can go and realize how precious life is. And that idea of celebrating life, if you go and think about a celebration, like if someone had a birthday party and just sent you out a PowerPoint, you would be sorely disappointed. I have a feeling. Like I've never lived in Manchester. I have visited Manchester a few times. I've gone out on a few nights out in Manchester. And I just have a feeling that that is not how you would want your birthdays to be celebrated. Maybe a meeting, maybe sharing some notes on it. No, when you want to celebrate something, you want to celebrate it with your heart, with your soul. You want to celebrate it with big ideas. You want to celebrate it with laughter. You want to celebrate it with song, with movement. And so that's why, looking to that congregational model makes so much sense, because no matter what you might think about religion, they have got a lot of experience in how to make people think that what they consider to be the most important thing in their life remains the most important thing in their life. And that's why, looking back to these models is so powerful, because they have had thousands of years of experience of helping people to go and refocus on what's the most important thing. And that, for many of them, they'd call it God. But in the age that we're living today, I think that life itself is as good a place as any to start. It's something which, for me, as a sort of battle-hardened atheist, I think that when I die, there's going to be nothing but an annihilating emptiness. And I'm fine with that. Or you might be on this call and you think that your life has come from another source, whatever that might be. But we can all celebrate the fact that we're alive. And that's just what I wanted to come back to today. And it's what I always think that Sunday Assembly is so powerful at doing, is just coming back to this thing that is your life. Because I don't know if you know that story, which is a David Foster Wallace story, where there's two young fish and they're in a goldfish bowl and they're just swimming around, they're having a chat, and then an older goldfish swims by and says, "How's the water?" And the one young goldfish says to the other, "What's water?" And I think that's the situation we are with our lives, that we can so easily take it for granted. And often, and the reason that like the first drafts of Sunday Assembly came back to had so much death in it, is it is often our moments when we encounter death, whether it might be a close experience with it with ourselves. How many people do you know have had an illness, an accident, and suddenly changed what their experiences of life, what their priorities are? Or it might be the death of someone who's near to them. And in my case, the reason that Sunday Assembly is a celebration of life, the reason that I ended up starting the Lifefulness project, the reason that my first stand-up show was called Another Heartbreaking but ultimately life-affirming show about death, the reason that I ended up becoming a stand-up when my mum was a lawyer, my dad was an accountant, and had I chosen to be, I don't know, a chartered surveyor, that would have been the equivalent of running away to join the circus. And the reason that all of that happened was because my mum died when I was 10. And I think that's why I constantly come back to life, because it was in that moment and having to sort of come to terms with it that, you know, you just, life and death is no longer an academic thing, but it is something which is really lived and really real. And becoming aware that, you know, when you end, that's the end of it. You know, that's what has sort of infused all of my life and made me want to go and start an organization which 8 years on is still thriving, and we're hearing messages of different Sunday assemblies popping up. And it all comes from this celebration of life, this one fact, which is so huge, which is bigger than you can possibly imagine. And when it is taken away from you, that's it. It's the end of the show. And the reason that, like, despite my mum dying and despite knowing that death is going to be there at the end, that for me, it brings joy to go and think about life. For me, it sort of makes me just to take a moment now to become aware of it, to become aware of all that you can do, all that you can be, to become aware that even the pain is sort of a key to life and is part of life and can be loved nevertheless. Is because
I'm going to come and join you, Sanderson, now, because
I'm
I know
going
we've
to
only got 5
wrap
minutes.
it up just there, Louise. I'm just going to stop it there and just say that, like, the reason that I find that it's so powerful to think about it is that when you realize that no matter where you are in life, that life itself was a gift that none of us did anything to earn. And the question is, like, what happens when you get given a gift? And for me, it's to go and find gratitude. And I think that's a vital part of Sunday Assembly, is constantly finding gratitude in life itself. So I'm going to stop there.
Sanderson, I want to ask you how the differences between mindfulness and lifefulness, because I know you've thought a little bit about things. Because
so
mindfulness is gratitude and being in the moment. How does lifefulness?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of similarities, and I said that the difference is the way mindfulness came about is that mindfulness came about when a guy called John Kabat-Zinn, he was a practitioner of Vipassana Buddhist meditation, and he realized that if he took Buddhist meditation and he made it secular and he did it in a language which wasn't Buddhist, and he started measuring it, then he would be able to help the patients in his hospital. And so basically mindfulness is secular and inclusive Buddhism in a way. And so it comes from adapting this meditative practice. And the reason I came up with the word lifefulness is I realized that what Pippa and I had done, without even, like, not consciously, is that we had done for congregation what mindfulness had done for meditation. And so they had taken a practice which was religious and did it in a way which was inclusive. And it's the same way that nowadays everyone does yoga, and no one says I'm off to do some secular Hindu yoga. They say I'm just off to do yoga. And that's the thing of, like, what happens if we start to just see congregations, they don't have to be religious at all. Like, you can go to a lifefulness congregation, and I'd like it in the future if they weren't only Sunday assemblies, it wasn't only the Lifefulness Project, but anyone would learn how to do it, because the congregation is such a powerful technique. And so that's the big difference of, like, where those come from.
We've had a question from Phil saying, is it true that Sunday Assembly is now on the national curriculum for religious studies?
It has been, yeah. The Sunday Assembly has been studied as part of the RE syllabus, and it was a question of, like, what other sources of non-religious authority are there? So So I don't know which.
And Phil has asked, how would you teach non-belief?
I wouldn't.
Right answer.
I think that it's. I think we certainly have to do some work around what facts are, because seeing what happens in the US and seeing this rise of conspiracy theory does mean, like, the sort of technical term is, we're in an epistemic crisis. Like, how do we know things? What is truth? And all the rest of it. But at the same time, I think that there's a way, often when humanists will talk about the universe, and they'll say, well, that shows that God doesn't exist. And religious people will say, the universe is wonderful, and that shows that God does exist. And I think that in a space like Sunday Assembly, you can just say the universe is wonderful.
So lifefulness is the celebration within the congregation.
Yeah, well, it is. And I guess this is the part where it is. There's obviously, if you looked at the Mississippi River, you could describe it in lots of different ways. You could describe it economically, geographically, sociologically, geologically. So one way that I've found is it is about celebrating life and loving life. That is a very simple thing. But then it also does come from, a very good way to do that is to look at the congregational community model, because they have got loads of different techniques to show you how you can make that a part of your everyday. Because it is in the same way that religious people find it very easy to forget about God when they get blasted by all these other signals. So I think every one of us, we've also got loads of people trying to distract us from just life itself, because they want to make you sure you think that you need life with their phone, life with their headphones, life with their holidays, or whatever it might be. And so it's just about concentrating on life itself.
Thank you very much, Sanderson. That is 20
minutes. No worries. Thank you.
I'm assuming you need to go right now.
Yeah, it's perfect timing. Thanks. And I just want to say thanks to everyone. Thanks to all of the organizers, Louise, Tony, Judith, Lynn, everyone who is part of this, and all of you guys. You make so much difference in people's lives. And there's going to be some people who only walked through a Sunday assembly once or twice, and then they left, and that will have really had a profound impact. And there's going to be some people who are there for a year, and then you're wondering, where did they go? And that's going to make a change. And I know that as each one of you is here because it's made a difference in your life. And by being here, you are changing lives. And this shit is, this stuff is really important. And thank you all. It makes a big difference. All right, then. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Let's hear it for Sanderson Jones. He's off to London, literally right this second. There we go. So that was our speaker for today, Sanderson Jones, who is, if that wasn't clear to you, literally hosting Sunday Assembly London right now. So the assembly started with Sunday Assembly London, which was Pippa and Sanderson, who Pippa Evans was the other partnership, and she was speaking literally then in London when Sanderson came here, and now he's gone back because probably Pippa is treading water right now, desperately trying to fill for Sanderson to return. So that's what's happened. But they had a conversation, and they set up the first Sunday Assembly, which was let's all get people together in a hall, and they had hundreds of people attend on the first one. And that's how they discovered what Sunday Assembly was. Then other people from around the country and around the world heard about it. and wanted to set their own up. So where Sunday Assembly Manchester fits in is, I believe ours was 9 months later. I wasn't there when it actually started myself, but I think it was 9 months later. So still in the same year. So we're 8 years old this year, but not now. They're 8 years old now, and we're 8 years old later this year. So unbelievable that it's been going 8 years. And we do know of lots of assemblies around the world. There are some later today in the US, which I'm sure Adam will put in the chat box at some point. So if you would like to go to any other, then that's perfectly fine. Just don't go when ours is on. That's all I ask. No, you can do what you want, but you know what I mean. So you can go along to some of the others, particularly on different time zones. And that's part of the reason why we're recording, so different time zones can see what we're doing. So here we go. We've got, let's shout out for them. We've got Silicon Valley today, later on. They're doing Stepping Up. Nashville's on today with the power worshippers. We have Detroit. They're a lovely bunch of people. My hero, Houdini, that's at 4 o'clock. So that is a great way to sort of go in. And from the people that have been from here to America, they've been incredibly welcoming of people. I mean, they've been welcoming anyway, but because they know you've come overseas, they're particularly welcoming. So thank you for that. And just to go back to the exercise that we did at the beginning of the assembly, so I asked you to be aware of your body. Then I asked you to take on a pose that is more confident, that is more stronger in some way. And I'm hoping that your reflection on that is that you realise that you're alive, hopefully, that you realise what your body was doing. Because we're in autopilot, and we know that from mindfulness. Constantly in autopilot. You can drive somewhere and not know how you got there. You can have brushed your teeth and not remember how long you've been brushing your teeth for. You can be in lockdown and not remember the last time you left the house. You know, so many things. You're in autopilot because that's how your brain works. If you had to think through every single thing that you do, your brain would be exhausted. Just think, if you've learned how to drive, how difficult driving was at first. You had to think of everything. You had to think of how to hold the steering wheel, when to change gear, exactly how everything worked. And so your mind creates shortcuts to make it easier. And in that shortcut, you end up being almost like you're walking through life in a dream. And it's big things like losing a job or a pandemic or losing a loved one that wakes you up almost, and you go, oh no, I've only got this amount of time to live, or oh no, I've lost a parent, so I need to enjoy life. And often people that, to go back to death, as Sanderson was talking about, often people that have terminal illnesses, you ask them what they appreciate, and there's many articles online that go through this, and it will be the view from a window, a leaf. Ben mentioned last week about the film Soul from Pixar, and that he looks at a sycamore leaf. It's that view, it's that breath of air, it's being in fresh air, looking at something that is beautiful. Even in lockdown, you know, you're not meant to go very far, just the one exercise a day. If you do go out, a leaf, a tree, that one moment of freedom is lifefulness, because you're appreciating that it is, and you're celebrating being alive. And I love what Sanderson has said, because this is a party. People say, oh, Sunday Assembly, why is it really serious and humanist, and we all go through books and stuff and have deep discussions? We do that, but we also have a good time, and we're going to continue to do that here at Sunday Assembly Manchester, with comedians, with fun, but also with things that we can learn and take away. So that's some idea of what is fun. We have our pink sparkly backgrounds, we have lots of fun here, we sing songs, and we celebrate the fact that we are alive, ladies and gentlemen, today and now. And boy, are we grateful, because that is not the right that's afforded to a lot of people. And we don't know how long we've got, so we might as well celebrate it. So ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to introduce our poet. I'm just going to check that there's nothing pressing in the chat box. We're just having a little chat with each other, which is fine. I would like to introduce our poet now, who normally goes on at the beginning, but now she's had to wait, so I'm just going to find her. Her name is Fatima, so I'm just going to find her. I'll second. Change my own view so I can find where Fatima... here she is. Fatima Lisbeth is here, our poet. Please go mad, please go wild. Here she is.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well. I usually write dark poetry, so I know that's a little heavy for a Sunday morning, so I do apologise for that.
It's okay. Don't worry about that. Sanderson has already brought up death, so we're well into that. So don't worry.
Yeah, I feel like he set the tone for me. So I'll start. The second one may need like a slight content warning, so I will say that again before I start it. So my first piece is called Human. Entering the world on the 12th day of November, a blank canvas, ready to be loved and cherished, not abandoned. Tiny human, also fragile and precious, needing nourishment. Please don't neglect and reassemble. Initiate, process, dehumanization. Piece by piece, you began to dismantle. Ruthless in your approach, cruelty, violence, torture, rinse, repeat, and recycle. Surrender is the only option. Never had a chance to explore another direction. A mutation you created and constructed for your twisted affirmations and amusements. My second piece needs a slight content warning. So if everybody's okay, I'll begin. It's called Girl. Just a girl, harboring secret compulsions and hideous lies. Thanatos urges swell and rise. She pines for transitory release beneath the somber sheets of an inky twilight, soberly sketching a mad masterpiece, breeding a sacred kind of therapy, hand carving a bespoke showpiece, dripping cherry beads, trails of silk and hues of cerise. Just a girl, bound to this seductive life. A thunderous crescendo commands the scissor blade or pocket knife. A buried ache begs for the tiniest of subtractions, roll on heart palpitations. Climaxing at the disassociated high, she consents to a serrated bite, a bladed sedative and arctic delight, consummated throughout a starless night. The peel prickles plump and ripe, ecstasy surges from her traumatized mind. A salmon slit is euphorically birthed to life, throbs excitedly with ephemeral life. Just a girl in the cellar, all alone, never summer, silently attempting to survive, loneliness her only guide. And my last piece, it kind of harps, it talks a little bit about what Sanderson was talking about, where it's a journey out of the darkness into the light, where and the light for me was accepting yourself, appreciating your life, and feeling that it's enough. You're enough. Your life is enough. Everything you have is enough. And living in the moment, being in the moment, and just exist, just being and being happy in it. It's called I Am. Misunderstood most of my life. Belonging and acceptance was craved day and night. Prisoned in an eternal daze. The bullying and belittling left me feeling crazed. Could do without all this strife, but it was never that black and white, especially when it's blood twisting the knife. Decaying in self-hate and fear. Life speeding by whilst I'm stuck in first gear. Anxiety spreads like cancer, sarcoma of the soul, leaving me weak with no real answers and without goals. Welcome to limbo in the black hole. Forceful and familiar, the voice inside, taunting me, swallow the fruit of the poisonous tree, tormenting me deep inside. What treachery resides, Jekyll and Hyde, jaded voices at bedtime, spurring suicide. You are not enough, nice enough, pretty enough, smart enough, talented enough, skinny enough, just not enough. These feelings of worthlessness shaking me to my core, silently screaming, I can't take it anymore. This psychological great war, my tortured mind locked in an insidious maze. Is this the sunken place? Hypocrites and liars, I see you playing with fires, fulfilling your own dirty desires. Practice what you preached. I'd watch you all burn on great big bonfires. Cheap tactics used to scare, coercion and blackmail snaring you to stay in the nightmare. It's the jealousy they couldn't bear. Beware, hungry demons compressing the air. Hide the frightened inner child to heal from the chronic child abuse until she's ready and fully aware. Used and abused, stripped apart into 1,000 fragmented pieces. Shard by shard, you glue yourself together. Inhale, exhale, steadily strength increases until it's cohesive and you no longer need adhesive. Scarred and ugly, the world names you. Friendless and afraid they jeer at you. They lack the wisdom to see the real beauty of surviving oppressors, the resilience it's taken to bind yourself all together, to carry on no matter the weather, when you've been ripped apart and left to die in the gutter, to pick yourself up, feather by feather, after all the hurts and the betrayals. the lies and the truths that were unveiled, the scars and the wounds that haven't yet sealed. There will come a time when you're fully grown and healed, and a new fate will be revealed. I have nothing to prove, and no one to impress. What I do is enough. What I have is enough. This moment is enough. I have survived. I am alive. I am safe and at peace. I am more than enough. Thank you so, so much.
Fatima Elizabeth, everybody, go wild. I'm going to join you. Hello. If we want to find out more about your poetry, where would we go, Fatima?
So I have my Facebook page, which is my name, Fatima Elizabeth, and I'm mostly on Instagram now as well, where it's and I'm Fatima Elizabeth Poetry, so you can find me there.
Amazing. I'm sure you can pop it in the chat box.
I will do. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much, Fatima Elizabeth, everyone. Wonderful, brilliant. So that was our poet and speaker all talking about this thing called life. We have this ability to be an autopilot, which I talked about before, but we also have this ability to feel that we're sort of trapped in our lockdown. You know, all of us are in this lockdown together. But there's something about the pandemic itself, as awful as it has been, that has awoken certainly something in me to remind ourselves of how grateful we are. But I also want to let you know that it's also okay to feel bad. Now, I don't want you to feel bad, obviously, but we need to be aware of the grief that we have experienced as a community together. So this is, I'm hoping, what Sunday Assembly can be for you. A place where you can come and be yourself, a place where you can accept that things we've been through are hard. But at the same time, we can be grateful for the little things that we've got, the fortunate. And also, please don't feel that people have it worse than me. Don't get into that, people have it worse than me. If you feel sad, but know that that will pass. And there is plenty of life that is joyful. And there is plenty of things you can be grateful for. But if on one day you don't feel grateful, that is also okay. Because some days you're not going to feel that great. And that is the truth of it. But know that that will also end. Okay, so it's not all, Lifefulness is not all about, oh, this is all great. It's not. But the pain is part of life, sadly, but also is beautiful at the same time. So that's very much what Fatima summed up in her poetry, that there is a struggle, life is hard, no one's saying it's not, to be clear to you. So thank you very much to our speakers, Sanderson Jones, who's gone off to host, and also to Fatima Elizabeth for their contributions. We are going to have a moment of reflection. You've had a lot of things thrown at you, and I am hoping that in that body exercise that we did, you had some realization that you can change the way you feel through how you have your body. So once you know, if you're like this, which I am all the time, and then you make the active decision to pull out, stand up, be strong, get a confident position in your body, that can actually change the way you feel. And that was part of the exercise that Sanderson did, which I did with you at the beginning. So that is available to you at any time. To actually, if you've got in a state of panic and you find yourself like this, you can find a moment of calm. You can put your feet on the ground. So that being said, we're going to have 2 minutes of silence to just have a little bit of reflection. But be aware of how you're sat, how your feet are on the ground, how you are, calm your breathing down. So let's have that moment. Thank you very much. We're going to say goodbye to our YouTube. Bye. Recording today.